was in the market for some new LED colored light bulbs for my new lamps I just got. And I went on Amazon like I usually do and started browsing the site and saw that, sure enough, there's like 15 or 20 to choose from. And I don't know what the differences are really. They all look about the same. I read the descriptions, seem about the same. They all have pretty good ratings. So what do I get? Which one would be the best? So I decided to buy 3 different ones to test out and see if there really are any differences. And I'm happy to report there are some differences, okay? And let's go over some that I found. The most important difference in these bulbs to me is the size of the bulb. As you look at these 3, by the way, the 3 models that I got this LE Lighting Ever bulb. I got a Netboat, interesting names they come up, these Chinese, Netboat LED, and ILC bulb. All had really high ratings on Amazon. But biggest difference is the size of the bulbs. They're not all the same size. Look at this. Like here's the smaller one. The LE is the smallest one. It comes in at 4 1/8 inches from bottom to top. And then look how big this one is in comparison. This is the ILC, which is 5 1/4 inches. And that's very important depending on the fixture you're going to put it in and the glass shade, because if you got a small shade, the bulb might stick out of the end of the shade and it's not going to illuminate it as nicely. Really, because these LED bulbs have this part where no light comes out, to me, you want a bulb, the shorter the bulb, the better. Because the shorter, it's going to cast that light out better and illuminate your glass shade in a better way. So that's something to take into consideration. I didn't even think about that when ordering these bulbs. I figured they'd all be probably exact same size within 1 centimeter. But look at that. They're different. So, and you might want a taller bulb. So just keep in mind where you're going to put it. Where are you going to be using these bulbs? If you got a long, tall shade, you might want this one. But to me, even a long, tall shade, I just would think most likely this is going to be the better size, the smaller size. Okay. Another thing, the accuracy and the amount of colors. All these bulbs are very accurate in their colors, except for the LE. There's one color it can't do very well, and that's yellow. It does sort of a yellowish orange color, which you wouldn't even be able to tell it unless you compared it side by side with one of the other two, which do a nice solid lemon yellow color. But any other color, green, blue, the main colors, even purples and orange, this is spot on. They're all spot on, perfect. Way better than this. Like when the Philips Hue first came out, I got that. And that thing sucks compared to these colors. I mean, that thing, there's many, I don't even think that could even do green, a true green. But these are so much better, vivid, and can do exactly the color you want. Except also, one other thing talking about colors is they all can do white too, of course. But this one does a warm white, where these two do a cooler white. And that's a dramatic difference if you plan on using them as white light on occasion. So it's just a matter of what you like better. I prefer warm white myself. But take that into consideration. Now, the brightness. This is supposed to be 6 watt. These are 10 watt. I'm here to say there is very little difference. You can barely tell a difference, okay? Very minimal difference. And the thing is, I actually prefer the 6 watt. Well, I wouldn't want a bulb to be really too bright. If it's an ambiance mood light, you don't want it too bright, do you? I don't know, maybe you do. But 6 watt is actually perfect for me. I prefer 6 watt. But it's really not much difference. So if you're reading the descriptions of these bulbs, and you know, you're like, oh wow, this is 10 watt. That's so much brighter than 6. I want the biggest and the best and the brightest, so I'm getting the 10 watt. I wouldn't think like that. Just keep in mind, it's barely a difference. Some people probably won't even notice the difference. And really, do you really want it to be too bright? Something to think about. Okay, another thing is the extra features on the remote. The LE is pretty standard. It doesn't have many extra features. Where these two have these timer things that it can do. And I'm going to go over the remotes later and explain that. But just keep in mind, some of them can do a few little extra things that the others can't. And then we have ease of use of the remote, which is important to me. These two, the LE and the Netboat, their remotes, very simple to use. You take it out of the box, and within 5 seconds you can figure it out. It's got a button allocated for each function. So you want green, push green. You want to dim it down, you push this button. You know, and then the Netboat's remote is equally as easy to use. It's different, but it's very similar, very easy to use. Where the ILC remote is trash. My God, who thought of this remote? It's very convoluted. I would never buy this bulb again just because of the remote. Okay. Now, if you just want to do red, blue, or green, it's got a dedicated button for that. But like, if you want purple, you gotta hit this heart button first. That stands for preset. Heart, and then you'd have to hit one of like the blue button, and then you'd have to start pushing up on the red to get it to the cycle through the colors to get it to the purple that you want. So you can't just go directly to the color. You have to play around and cycle through it and find the color you want. It's just, it takes too long, and I just don't like it. Another thing, this one says it can do 120 colors. Not accurate. Can't do that much. It can do 43, including white. It does 43 colors. I don't know where they're getting that 120 from. The Netboat can do 12 colors, which is plenty. I don't know why you really need more than 12. I mean, it does pink and teal and light blue and, you know, orange. Can do, you know, don't see really why you would need much more than 12. But this one can do 16. So this one, that's actually perfect, because you really don't need more than 16. And it can do a few more maybe that this one can't do. But again, 16, 12, and this is actually too many colors. I mean, it's like when you go from one color to the next, you're like, did that change? I think I saw a change in the color. Let me rewind that and try it again. So, in conclusion, of these 3 bulbs I got, they're all nice and all, but I prefer the LE model, the Lighting Ever one, mainly because of the small size, and it works best with my lamps. That, and I like the warm white. 6 watts is fine. It's got 16 colors, which is perfect. The remote, very easy to use. And although it doesn't do yellow perfectly, I'll never be using yellow. So it does all the other colors just fine. So now I'm going to talk about the remotes. Let's go. By the way, these manuals, look at these manuals. You can barely read the print on these things. That's why, that's not even a manual. That's just a like, are you happy or are you unhappy? Call this number if you're unhappy. But luckily, these 2 remotes are very easy to understand. You don't even need a manual, where this one is a little more tricky. So it helps to have a manual, even though you can't read it unless you got 20/20 vision, or you might need to break out the magnifying glass. But anyway, let's take a look. I'm going to show you some light comparisons. Now, the camera's not going to do the light bulbs justice, okay? You got to see these in person. They look a lot better in person, but I'm going to try to show you some examples with the footage, and then I'm going to go over the remote control. Alright, let's take a look at these bulbs. So here they are in blue, green, and red. Now looking at them individually, starting with the LE model, lighting ever, I'm going to cycle through some of the colors. I've pressed one of the buttons on the remote that makes it automatically cycle through the colors so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Ending on warm white, and then I'm going to dim it down as low as I can. It dims down to about half the level it's at when it's at its fullest level. Moving on to the Netboat, notice that bright cool white at the start, and then I'm going to cycle through some of its colors. Again, keep in mind, in person, these are a lot more bright and vivid than on this video recording. I don't have the greatest camera, so. Alright, and the Netboat dims down about the same way as the other one, the LE. Now the ILC, notice that bulb popping out there from the shade. You can see it because it's so tall. And its colors are very similar to the other two. And one thing about this bulb, it doesn't dim down near as much as the other two. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, now let's look at the bulbs in my new lamps. Now I would think ideally you would want the bulb to be near the center of the glass shade to illuminate it evenly. And the LE comes the closest to that. It sits about 3/4 of the way up the bulb towards the top of the shade, which isn't bad. It lights it up pretty good. But the Netboat's a little taller, and therefore it makes the lighting a little more uneven. The bottom of the shade is not getting quite as much illumination as that top part, so I just don't like it quite as much for this particular lamp as the LE. And then the ILC is a complete disaster for this lamp. It's way too high near the top. You might not can tell it as much in this video as in person, but in person it just looks awkward. It's just way too high. So it's not working for this lamp. One thing I want to say, keep in mind that all these bulbs are cool to the touch. I find that interesting. Even on their white light, on their brightest level, they're all cool to the touch. Alright, now let's focus in on these remotes. Let's start with the LE model. Pretty standard. Up in the top left you got your dimmable buttons. You got off and on. And in this section you have your colors. You just press the button and it'll take you right to the color. W stands for white. And then you have 4 special effect buttons, like to change, make the colors cycle through in different patterns and smoothnesses and all that. Alright, the Netboat's remote, very similar. Notice that one button near the top, MP, that'll make it dim down in one fell swoop a lot faster. You just hit it one time and it dims it all the way down. Got flash and smooth, those are different effects. The clock buttons, this one is cool because it'll cut off after a certain amount of hours. You can program it, or it'll stay on for a certain amount of hours. It's got the dimmable buttons, and then you've got your color choices. Press the button, it'll take you right to the color. And finally the ILC remote, which I don't like. Top left you got the dimmable buttons, on and off. That one with all the colors on it to the left, that will sort of make it strobe through the colors, where the one in the middle makes it more fluid through the colors, rainbow colors. You got presets 1 and 2 with the hearts. You got the clock, which will make it cut off after a certain amount of hours. You got red, green, and blue dedicated buttons that'll take you right to it, and then the white button is in the center. And then you have these other 4 buttons that you have to press to keep cycling it through to get to the color you want. It's very awkward and complex, overly complex.